Hi, welcome to All Things Good. Today I'm going to be talking about razor blades. I'm going to be covering a brief history. I'm going to be covering the material, edge geometry, and the coatings of the razor blades. And later in another video, I'll talk to you about how to maximize the life. I'll talk to you about blade flipping and also stropping and how we can, get better wear of our blades. So the history of razor blades and cutting hair goes back thousands of years. It's not documented, but we can assume what happened by traditional anthropological evidence. So the first thing probably was that people burnt their hair, and this is how a lot of traditional cultures will give themselves haircut with fire, and will eliminate body hair through the use of fire. Later, probably flint devices or flint knives would cut hair, and then later after that the use of steel and metal materials, and that goes all the way back to Egypt. And in Egypt we knew it was popular because they shaved their head and they shaved body hair, and there's lots of evidence for that. So it goes back thousands of years. So the original steel was high carbon steel, which is basically iron and carbon. That was a universal product, and with that it rust, and it also was very brittle. So later additives began to be used, and we ended up with composite materials that we call stainless. Now it's not stain proof, it's stainless, and the reason for that is that the additives are usually chromium, vanadium or molybdenum, and what that does is as it's mixed into the blade, it's a composite, and the additives oxidize on the surface of the blade, and what it does is it prevents rust and degradation and pitting of the metal. And this is a wonderful technology. So the cutthroats developed. They became eventually stainless, but stainless is a lot harder to maintain an edge than a high carbon steel knife. So you often find in kitchens, in traditional kitchens, they still, like Japanese kitchens, they'll still use high carbon steel knives that will rust and that need to be maintained and left either very, very dry or in some cases oiled. Even in European kitchens, a lot of traditional chefs will still use high carbon steel knives, but it can only be used on certain items. It will turn onions black, for example. But Sabatier make a great carbon steel knife. But anyway, let's come back to stainless. So this technology of disposable razor blades really came to its forefront in the First World War, and war is a kind of a significant advancement in technology, because in wartime, there's all kinds of technology. So canning food came out of war. Weapons and explosives and all kinds of technology came from war. Engineering, for example, was out of necessity. Machinery, engines, planes, all came from wartime. And the razor blade also came from war times because it was quick, it was easy, it was disposable, and it was hygienic. So you can imagine hygiene is extremely important, and removal of hair and keeping short hair is important for several reasons during the war. Not just hygiene, but they've also discovered that, if you grab somebody's long hair or if you grab someone by the beard, it's a lot easier to kill them in hand-to-hand combat and in warfare. So shaving has been around and been an important part of military history for a long time. And so in the First World War, the safety razor came out, made by Gillette, and it was very popular. And I think that they made them by the truckload, and they were issued to soldiers, and the soldiers were allowed to retain these when they returned home, and thus began the era of the safety razor and the razor blade. And the razor blade is interesting because in those days it wasn't made from the same material, but it was made from a material where I think they had to sharpen them, and slowly over time this disposable razor blade came into its fall. So that's the brief history of razor blades, and I'm going to be talking now about edge geometry, and in fact I'll do a second video about that now.